Concealer can be game changing, but let's be honest, once you hit 40, things start to change and it can end up becoming a little bit more frustrating than game changing. What used to work doesn't work anymore, and suddenly concealer is exaggerating fine lines, making texture look worse, clinging onto the dry areas, and it's just not brightening the way it used to. And I know that sounds familiar to you guys, which is exactly why I'm going to be breaking down everything you need to know about concealer in your 40s. From the changes happening in your skin, the formulas, the tools, how you should be applying things, the pressure, what it does to your skin. I'm going to be sharing some secrets along the way, but you are going to become so knowledgeable about concealer in your 40s by the end of this video. You're going to feel like you've got a new lease of life. I'm going to teach you how to make your concealer work for you rather than against you. You're going to end up with smoother eyes, brighter under eyes, no more texture, fine lines looking minimized more than exaggerated, and it doesn't even matter if you're in your 40s, 50s, or 60s. This appeals to everyone dealing with aging skin. So while I'm talking, I'm just gonna finish off a little bit of my skin prep. So I already have my SPF on. I'm just gonna go in with my moisturizer, which currently is the Calm Keto Cream. I'm currently on a lot of Korean skincare, and it's doing wonders for my skin. So let's talk about the aging process and like just the impact that it has on our skin, because understanding all of this when it comes to your concealer helps massively, because it helps you to understand why your concealer isn't performing. Obviously, as we age, we produce less collagen, we get less elasticity in our skin, hence everything starts to kind of drop a little bit. There's a little bit more sagging, there's loss of volume in certain areas, and that loss of volume then means that other areas start sagging more, because where we used to have the volume, that actually used to be almost like an anchor to keep certain things up, and then imagine you've lost that, then everything starts to drop. So it doesn't just affect the area that you've lost the volume in. And all of that kind of makes it really difficult to use concealer because it's just not working in the same way. And even, to be honest, your skin becomes thinner as you age. So you might end up also noticing that your under eyes are a little bit more hollow than usual. You know, what once was quite plump is now quite kind of like looking a little bit sunken in. And that's a combination of the loss of volume, the collagen, the elasticity, but also the fact your skin has become thinner. Doesn't exactly sound great, does it, aging? It's not. You know, there are things you can do which are non-invasive, like you want to get some Botox, whatever. Everyone, I personally feel like you do you, it's up to you. I get Botox done like a few times a year and I'm all good with it. But I do still like to understand exactly how to work my makeup like in the best possible way so that it works for me. So because of the fact that our skin becomes thinner as we age, that basically means that you'll get more crepey skin. And I know a lot of you will understand what I'm talking about here. It's the skin becomes so thin, it just becomes very kind of like, almost like tiny creases. It's kind of like crumpled up paper. That's like what I mean when I'm talking about like crepiness. The skin becomes quite kind of loose a little bit as well. And it's really difficult to deal with, but there are ways that you can use your concealer to disguise these things without it kind of ending up exaggerating the flaws that we're actually trying to hide along the way. So let me just run through very quickly some really common skin concerns that we deal with so that you understand that, you know, there are many different things within this video that are going to help you. We're talking about fine lines, we're talking about wrinkles, and I'm talking about deeper fine lines, so deep wrinkles. I'm talking about like sagging. Some people as they age become a little bit more puffy. In all honesty, I feel like that has a lot more to do with your inflammation and things like that, or maybe products that are not reacting well to your skin. But a lot of it can be worked on a bit deeper than just skin, you know? Like you might be able to solve some of these issues through your diet or exercise and everything. But we're just talking about everything topical here. So you've also got dark circles, another issue that we end up getting. And again, that can be due to the loss of volume, loss of like elasticity, the thin skin now, or just generally something that maybe you could try and make kind of deal with in terms of like your routine. Uneven skin tone, there's texture, and I know as we get older, sometimes texture becomes worse as well, because all of those other kind of things that I'm talking about all end up kind of contributing to making texture look worse too. And if you have dealt with any of these issues that I've listed, I just need you to know that you're not alone. It is so common. like someone out there has got one of them, or if not a few of them that they're dealing with. But you also need to understand that there is a solution. It's about understanding what the right concealer is that you need to use, what the formula is that you should be using, and the method. It's about understanding how to make your concealer work with your skin rather than against it, and that's everything that you're going to be learning now. So I'm just going to add some primer. I'm using my Laura Mercier blurring primer. This is a really good option for you if you want to kind of help to blur any of those fine lines. I have to say, I think that the best blurring primer I've used is this one. I've used quite a few, and I do feel like this makes a difference. If I just smooth this over on one side, you can see that my skin is pretty shiny at the moment. But if you see that, it kind of mattifies the area. It just blurs it over a little bit. So I do feel like this is a really good primer that doesn't build up on your skin. There are some primers that start pilling. And what pilling means is when it almost looks like, you know, when you get the old school kind of eraser and you know, back in the day. I mean, if you're watching this video, you must remember that, right? And then you get all the little rubbery bits. Products sometimes become like that on your skin, and you just kind of try and sweep it away, and it just gets worse. So it's like it's almost like it's like little bits coming off your skin, and it's just a build up of skincare. Some primers can actually do that, and this primer in particular doesn't do that. It just smooths over the skin, it blurs your skin, and it acts like a veil on top, and it's a really good way to keep that barrier between your skincare and your makeup too. So I'm also going to just very quickly put some brow wax on. This is not concealer related. So ultimately, oh my god, guys, I'm gonna have to take my earrings out because one just literally fell off. I don't know where the back went. So anyway, these are the kind of things that happen sometimes when you're filming. So when you're dealing with mature skin, strategy is really important. You can't just swipe on concealer and go anymore. It doesn't work like that. Not like when you were in your 20s. It's, you know, you've really got to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, and what formula you're using, whether that formula is going to be good for your skin. There's just so much more involved now that, you know, you have to educate yourself a little bit regarding these things, because otherwise you're just not going to get the best possible finish. So it really depends on how serious you are about getting the best possible finish so that your skin looks flawless and you are more in control of how your concealer looks on your skin, rather than your concealer is more in control of it. It's not a case of using the concealer you've probably already used, like you've used all your life and you've loved, because what you once loved for your skin may not work for you anymore. So it isn't just about understanding how to use concealer, it's understanding that you need to choose the right formula. So what kind of formula should you be looking for? We're going to get into concealer in a second, but very quickly I want to talk about the formula, because this isn't something that I can show you so much, like it's more kind of making you understand. You want to look for a creamy and hydrating formula. These creamy and hydrating formulas plump up the skin a little bit more. So it's kind of like a very kind of quick and easy way of giving the illusion of more plump skin. It helps to kind of soften the fine lines. So the plumpness is going to help to soften the fine lines, which is why as we lose our plumpness, you can see those fine lines appear more obvious. When you've got more plump skin, it fills it out a bit, right? So that's why you don't end up seeing the fine lines as much. So look for products with like shea butter or squalane, I don't know how you say that, but you know, that like really hydrating formulas. You want to also look for long-lasting concealers, but there's a big but here. It's got to be lightweight. So don't just look for like the word long lasting. You want to look for very lightweight concealers that are also long lasting. So those two words together are going to be like game changing for you. Just looking for a like long lasting concealer isn't going to work, because most long lasting concealers, which don't say the word lightweight on it, are heavy, and it's going to be too cakey for you. So I know it seems like you're asking for a lot, but you can find them. You want concealers which are long lasting, are going to stay put in the heat and when you have your makeup on all day, but you also want it to feel very light on your skin. I would say the last but a very important thing to look for with concealers is a concealer which has skin loving ingredients in there. So things which are good for your skin. And I know it's an easy thing to just kind of think, well, it doesn't matter. Most of them say they have something good in it. It isn't just about that. It's about understanding that those good ingredients and specific ingredients that you're looking for are going to really help to actually help you with your concealer game. So it's really going to help your concealer to look better on your skin. I'm talking about looking for concealers with any of these words: peptides, hyaluronic acid, niacinamide. All these things are going to work wonders for your skin. All you're doing here is we're kind of eliminating the need to work even harder physically when it comes to putting your concealer on. What you're doing is you're trying to kind of like make sure you've got the best possible formula before you even get started with the method, before you even get started with technique. It just means you don't have to work as hard to try and get that concealer to work with your skin. You've already got it to work with your skin because of all the ingredients that you've looked for and all these keywords that you're looking for. Now, when it comes to choosing the right shade, I would say this is where most people get it wrong. Your main concealer should match your skin tone as close as possible. And this is especially important if you're looking to use your main concealer to cover pigmentation or redness around the skin. So you imagine you don't want to use a brightening concealer on those areas, right? Because you want whatever you're trying to cover to match in with your skin, blend in perfectly. Now, when it comes to brightening the under eyes, which is the main area that you'd usually want to brighten, like I'm not going to have pigmentation around my face and I want to brighten just those areas, because it's actually going to make those areas go the opposite way. So where it may be quite dark right now, you're making it look much lighter then after, which it's still going to stand out. So ultimately, it's the under eye area usually that we're looking at when it comes to the brightening effect. And this is where I would say you go one shade lighter, not any more than that, than your skin tone. It's like a touch lighter. And in fact, you can even go as far as doing this, which is what I have been doing for years. You have your main concealer, which is like basically as close as possible to your skin color, right? You've got that. Then you also keep another concealer. So you're always with two concealers. The other concealer is one shade lighter. Now, what that concealer is for brightening, but you have great control here, because what you can do is you could actually use your normal main concealer and then just add a tiny bit of that brightening concealer, and you kind of end up with the perfect shade. I've been doing it for years. It's absolutely amazing, and it's one of the tricks I'm going to show you shortly. When it comes to your brightening concealer, you do want to make sure that it's not too bright, because it can end up looking quite grey or ashy. So you want to make sure it still is within your undertone that you're working with, but just a tiny bit lighter. And by the way, I have talked about this recently on the Beauty Breakfast Club, which is my online publication. It's where I talk about everything beauty related, and you'll find really in-depth articles on there. There's so many you need to catch up on because it's been going for about a year now, and it's free to subscribe. So please do head on over and subscribe. But there is a paid version which gives you access to everything, the entire archive you've got at your fingertips with the paid version. So much information. It's like a course. So please do head on over and subscribe for the paid version, because I think you're gonna love it. Plus, we get a little room where we can chat, so it's well worth it. And the community we're building there is amazing. And by the way, the paid version is less than getting yourself a coffee a month. It's like honestly not much, but it does really help to support my business. Now, let's get started with these concealer tricks. So first off, what we're gonna do is get started with color corrector. Now, this is great for the dark circle side of things. So when you're dealing with like pigmentation, like darkness, and you really wanna kind of neutralize that color, you want to work with a color corrector. So we're going to be using the Kosas Revealer Extra Bright. This is in the shade Alchemy, and these are pretty good color correctors. I recently tried them. There's not a lot that I like from Kosas, but there's the odd couple of bits that I like. And I have to say, this is very good. Now, when it comes to applying your color corrector, it's really a case of understanding where you have the darkness, but also what is it that this is doing. Don't just slap on the color corrector. You want to remember that peach or salmon tones, like the orangey side of it, that really works at neutralizing or cancelling out blue tones or like purple tones around the eyes. So if you feel that that's the kind of color that you have, like, can you see I've got this like blue vein here? So this vein is very prominent on this eye, and it kind of ends up giving the dark circle a helping hand. It really just carries it on. But what we want to do is kind of neutralize the area. So this is what we're going to be doing here. So I tend to be quite veiny around the face in certain areas. I've noticed as time has gone by, I've definitely noticed my, like as I'm aging, I'm in my mid-40s now, and my skin has become a little bit thinner, and because of that, I can really see the veins a lot. It's a bit more obvious now to me, like especially down the side of my like forehead and down the middle. I can see it. It's a lot more prominent than what it was before. Now, if you are dealing with like dark circles which are more brown or kind of grey toned, then you want to go for like a richer orange, like a deeper orange shade. So you can go for a much deeper color. The Charlotte Tilbury Magic Vanish is a really good option, by the way, for much deeper skin tones. I feel like I can get away with a kind of like medium peach at the moment, like yeah, medium peach I can get away with, which is why the COSAS is pretty good for me. If you're dealing with general kind of like dullness around the area, then I would opt for like a yellow undertone, because that's really gonna help to brighten up the area. A really important thing you need to remember, you've got to use a very small amount of color corrector. It is there to balance the tone out, not to conceal anything. Don't mistake this for your concealer when you're applying it. So let's go ahead and apply a very small amount. Now, there are a few areas which I know I get like it looks darker for me, and I'm going to apply it on the groove of the area. So just a tiny dot there, and you're going to see what this does shortly. And I'm also going to add a little bit there. So I've kind of done tiny dots there, and I'm going to get a concealer brush. This is my Hourglass concealer brush. There's nothing on here, and this tiny little dot is going to go a long way, and you're going to see what I mean. It's not going to cover anything, like I said. It's there to balance out tones. So what this is doing is neutralizing the bluish kind of tone we have. So yes, it will look a bit orange, but that's fine. The concealer is going to get rid of it shortly. So you can see that looks a little bit kind of like orangey around there, right? Let's go to the other side and do the same thing. So you can see I haven't actually applied it too close to my actual eye. It's really not a case of going so close. It's about dealing with the area that is the groove, that where you kind of like, it's what separates the dark circle from your normal skin color. It's a very thin layer I've got on here. It's not a lot at all, so it's not a thick layer. I have this vein that goes down here. It's not so prominent here, but it is here. But so what I like to do is I just do a little bit there. And it needs to be very thin, your application. You've got to remember this. Very thin. It should just look like a kind of orange shadow there. There you go. Okay, so based on the formulas that we were talking about, my concealer that I'm going to be using is the Too Faced Born This Way Multitasking Concealer, and the shade I'm using is Sand. It is the concealer that is very close to my skin tone, right? So this is the one that I feel matches my skin tone. Now, I've got another concealer which is a little bit brighter, and it's a good coverage, but it's long lasting, but it's lightweight, and that is the Dior Skin Correct concealer, and that is in 3WO, which is warm olive, and that is a little bit lighter for my skin. So you don't always have to make sure your concealers are from the same brand. If you want to, you can get them from different brands. It's just understanding the colors. Now, when it comes to applying this, what we want to do is figure out what tool we're going to use to apply it. Now, let me go through the tools with you. You've got a flat brush. A flat brush is going to give you precision. It's going to allow you to work on certain corners of the face and create a lifting like with it too. You can really kind of like focus on that lifting technique with the flat brush, because I feel like you've got more control over where you apply. You're going to get clean finishes with this, and I love a flat brush for this. So I'm talking about a normal traditional concealer brush. Then you have the option of using a small fluffy brush. Now, what this does is this gives you more of a diffused look to your concealer. It's amazing for like very naturally diffusing the concealer, like so that it just kind of gives you that blurred effect to your skin. And lastly, of course, we have the damp beauty blender. This really helps to kind of melt the concealer into the skin for that kind of like real skin finish. So it's really about understanding what tool you want to go for. Now, if you want, you could use a combination of these tools. So for example, you could use a flat brush and then use a like a beauty blender to actually kind of blend it in and give yourself that real kind of skin-like finish. So you use the flat concealer brush to give you that kind of control when it comes to your application, and use a damp beauty blender to really buff it into the skin for the skin-like finish, which is exactly what we're going to do today. I'm going to be using these two concealers in different areas because I want to brighten the under eye, but everywhere else I really want my concealer to stay kind of like the same as my skin tone. The only place I want to brighten is my under eye area. Everywhere else, I'm going to be using my Too Faced concealer, which is the concealer which matches my skin tone perfectly. Let's get on and work on all the areas that I don't want to brighten, but I do want to kind of give, like, make everything look like the same as my skin color. First off, I'm going to work on the back of my hand. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of that concealer, and I've got my damp beauty blender. And what I'm doing is buffing into the back of the hand, into that concealer, making sure it really melts into the sponge first. And this is where I'm gonna just go onto the eyelids. This area is where I don't require like brightening, but I want it to be my skin tone. So I've got my setting powder, my powder puff. My powder puff is my Makeup by Mario Master Pro puff. I'm gonna dip into my powder. Make sure I swirl it around in the palm of the hand. We're just gonna set this. We're only setting this because it starts to crease and we really don't want that creasing. So you want a fluff brush, just dust it off. It's a really quick thing. There you go, that's done. Now where else do we want this kind of concealer on where we don't want to brighten? I would say around this area here where we applied the color corrector, just a little bit. So I've buffed it into the sponge, and I'm just kind of like going along this area. You don't have to be so specific, like only go in that like that in that line. You can just go around the area so it spreads out a little bit and it doesn't look so kind of like, you know, like where it's just in one, it's just a little targeted area. There you go. That is enough for me. Now let's move on to this lighter shade. We're gonna use a flat concealer brush. This is my Makeup Forever 230 brush. So let me just take some of this Dior concealer on the back of my hand. So I've got my damp beauty blender ready. Now this is where we're gonna work with the lifting technique. So we're gonna get the brush, we're gonna go into this Dior concealer. We're gonna be very strategic with our application. For the under eye, we're going to apply a small amount just on the inner corner there, just like that, a little dash, not a lot. What we're doing is bringing it down into the groove, right? So you're going to bring this down into the groove, not a lot, a very small amount. Then we're going to do a tiny bit here, a little dash there, and that's going up into the temples. That is it, that's all you need. Now this is where we're going to get our beauty blender, which is damp, and we're going to now blend over this inner corner concealer, take it into the groove, and then we're going to take it up into this bit here where we applied it. And it is such a small amount that we actually applied in terms of concealer. It's a very thin amount, and using a flat brush I feel like really does give you control over how much you're applying. Can you see the difference compared to the other side? And can you see the difference when it comes to the concealer? This concealer really brightens the area, but it's not white. It's such a touch lighter than the skin tone. And the difference is crazy. So let's go ahead and do the same on the other side. You always build in thin layers. Don't just apply a whole load on. If you want more coverage, like that's why you've done such a thin layer, because I feel like that's enough. If you feel like you need more, then just wait a few seconds and do exactly the same thing, but with less product. So from the inner corner, don't go close to the lower lash line, go towards the groove, and that's it. And then here, you're gonna take that up for a little lift. And then you're gonna get your beauty blender, take it down into the groove. You're bouncing, you're not dragging, and then take it up into the temple, like in that area. Now, did you notice that we let that concealer sit for a few seconds before we actually blended it? And that's really important because if you let it sit for a few seconds, it actually allows you to get more coverage with less product. So that's why I said to you, like in between, like leave it a little while before you go in, because that will basically allow you to use less product on your second layer if you feel like you need another layer. And even for your first layer, once we applied it, we didn't blend straight away. We had our sponge ready, but we kind of left it for a second like I was talking to you. That allows it to just self-set a little bit, and it means that it's easier for you to blend to get that really amazing coverage, but with less product. And we didn't drag, we buffed, we bounced. Call it whatever you want to call it, bounce, buff, whatever means dabbing, bouncing. That's all you're doing, you're not dragging. You really want to take your time with that step because the less product you use and the more time you give it, the more coverage you're going to end up getting and the more of a natural finish you're going to get. Now, before we go into powder, I want to apply a very thin layer of foundation on this just to kind of tie it all together. I'm going to get my MAC Studio Radiance. It is honestly the smallest amount of foundation that I'm applying here. I am just buffing this into the sponge, and this is going to take me like literally a minute. And see what I mean? I'm just doing a thin layer. It's hardly anything. It's not even a full pump that I've got on this sponge. And all this is doing is just kind of like giving everything a veil of color, so it ties everything together. And I would highly recommend using a very small amount because otherwise it can end up looking quite cakey, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So we want something which is kind of easy to get a nice natural finish with, and I would say this foundation is great for that. And that was like less than a pump, probably half a pump. And we've got a layer of it all over the skin, and I'm good to go because I feel like it's kind of given me that even finish now everywhere, but equally it's not heavy. I still feel like this is literally just giving me a veil of color. Now, when it comes to setting, you want to use a finely milled powder. I'm using the Huda Beauty Easy Bake powder. I feel like it's a really good powder. You could use something like the Laura Mercier Ultra Blur or even the Makeup by Mario setting powder. Those are really good options for setting. Now, I want to just add here that if you are watching this video, then it means that you obviously deal with creasing, you are probably in your 40s or coming up to your 40s or even 50s, 60s, 70s, wherever. It means that you have to set in a very specific way, as well as everything I've already shown you. And what that is in understanding that you can't do certain techniques that you see online. You should not be baking at all. Baking is not for you. If you have any of the issues that I have highlighted during this video, baking is something you need to stay away from. It is going to be your worst nightmare when it comes to like showing and exaggerating fine lines and texture. So stay away from that. You don't bake. The only person that I think should be baking is anyone with oily skin. Other than that, I don't think you should be baking. I don't bake. I do not sit and put my powder on and then leave it there. No way, never. There are a couple of different ways that you can set your makeup. One is using a fluff brush, and I would highly recommend the Real Techniques fluff brush because it's actually called setting brush, but this is an amazing brush. It's affordable. Get yourself a few of these. You could also use this. Do you remember the technique I told you about really kind of diffusing the concealer into your skin using a fluff brush? This is the kind of brush I would recommend for that. One is using a fluffy brush for setting your under eyes or your powder, and that is basically going into the powder and pressing it in, not going back and forth, pressing it in. That is one option. The other option is using a powder puff, and I'm going to be doing that today. Using a powder puff means you get a good quality powder puff, not just any. I'm talking about either the Laura Mercier powder puff or the Makeup by Mario Master Pro puff. This is an amazing powder puff. What we're going to do is you're going to press into the powder and you're going to press it onto the skin, and then immediately we're going to use the fluff brush to dust it away. So we haven't been baking. We've pressed it in to ensure that it kind of stays, but we're dusting it away. And like I said, you don't have to do that. You could just use the brush and press the powder in with the brush. So what we are going to do now is we're going to press into this powder. We're going to make sure we go into the palm. So really get the powder spread onto the powder puff. I've got this ready. Now I'm going to get my sponge. I'm going to use the tip to smooth out any product that's sitting in the lines. And I'm just going to work on my under eyes first. Right, now, immediately, I'm going to press this on. Can you see I've just gone in the same kind of shape that I did to the concealer? Get your brush, go to the eye that you did first, and very lightly, there's nothing on this brush, dust the powder off. See, we have not baked. We have literally just dusted it off immediately. Under eyes are now done. You will get no creasing, no crepiness all day. Now let's go for the smile lines. We're gonna get rid of any product buildup, which I don't have much when I use this technique because I've got such thin layers on, they don't really settle. Do the same thing, press. That's it. Now those two areas are done, so we've actually got the hard bits out of the way now. And this is where you can get a larger brush, something like the Hourglass Veil brush, dip into the powder, not a lot, and just press everywhere else on the face. Because you don't want like an ultra matte finish, but you also want your foundation to last all day. And that is all you need to set the rest of your face. Now to finish, you can use a hydrating spray if you feel that your powder is looking like everything is looking a little bit too matte. You can then kind of lightly go over with something like the Charlotte Tilbury setting spray. And that will kind of like just hydrate it a bit and get rid of that obvious powdery kind of finish that you might have. Because when you first powder your face, your skin is gonna look powdery. It's inevitable, but your natural oils slowly start to come out and you need to give it a couple of hours to do that. But some people have drier skin, and obviously as you're aging, it takes a bit longer. So you can use a spray to just bring it back down to reality, you know. So we've got the setting, we've got the power of the setting powder, but what we've done is we've just given it this kind of illusion of looking a little less powdery. It just gives you that lived in skin, you know, so that it doesn't look like you've just applied your makeup. I feel like if there's any powdery residue left on the face, the hydrating spray dissolves it so that it melts into the skin. That's the best way to put it, I would say. Yeah, it allows whatever leftover powder to melt into the skin so it doesn't look so harsh. So ultimately, if you've been struggling with these issues, now you know why, what to do about it, like how to fix those issues and what kind of concealer to use and how to use it. I would really appreciate if you feel that you've got anything from this video, if you were to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button, because those 3 things actually make a huge difference to my channel. Yeah, it doesn't cost you anything and I'd really, really appreciate it. So finding the right formula, applying it strategically and blending it seamlessly can make a huge difference, and it can completely transform the way your under eye looks. So I really hope this has helped today. Don't forget all the products listed in the description, and I will see you soon on the next video.